Hello, how you doing? My name is Daniel. I'm with Five Star Property Management, and I have Jordan here. He's also with business development with Five Star Property Management. And today we're just coming to you guys, wanting to talk to you a little bit about what Five Star Property Management is, where we got started, how we got started, and just some useful information regarding property management, residential and multifamily. Jordan?
Yeah, and so one of the things with this conversation today is we want to be able to share who Five Star Property Management is. We want to be able to talk about the beginnings, where they came from, but we also want to be able to talk about where we're going, whether you're from the resident side or whether you're looking to bring Five Star on as your property manager. So we just wanted for you guys to get to know us, get to know where we're headed. And first off, we're going to have Daniel discuss, where the origins of property management came from in his background, but also why they started in El Paso.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jordan. So basically what really happened here was we moved to El Paso, Texas in 2010, moved from Phoenix, Arizona. This was on the decline of the market when the real estate market crashed, mortgage crisis with all the loans, the bad loans that were done basically affected the real estate market around the country. And so we moved to El Paso, Texas. My wife's family was all from here. And when we got the call saying, hey, you should come out to El Paso, we have a strong real estate market. I was kind of turned upside down when I heard that, because I'm thinking strong real estate market, like everything is crashing around everybody as far as housing goes. And so I came out and I was speaking to family and stuff. They were informing me about what's called Fort Bliss Military Base. It's a military base in El Paso, Texas, and it's actually now one of the largest military bases in the country. Well, actually in the world now. And so at the time when we were moving, they started a huge expansion project to expand the base. And so I guess like every 7 years, the Department of Defense, they will go through and reevaluate all their entities and things around the world, and they'll restructure. And if it's cost effective, they'll move and close bases down. So Fort Bliss at one time was, I guess, supposed to be on the chopping block to get shut down, but they reevaluated the situation. They realized that they had the most contiguous amount of land in one given area. They had not only Fort Bliss military base, they also had White Sands Missile Range, and then they had Biggs Airfield. And I guess the conditions in the desert here in El Paso and New Mexico best mimic the Middle East. And so at the time, obviously, the sand and everything is real dusty, real fine. And so at the time they thought, well, this is a great environment to train troops and things like that. So they decided to expand the base, and they dumped billions of dollars into the base and into restructuring and reorganizing and just turning it into a really family friendly environment for soldiers. And so what we noticed in El Paso at the time was kind of a little bit of an economic boom in real estate. And obviously the cost of housing and things like that was a lot less in the El Paso area. And so it worked out really well where, you were able to get affordable housing and not spend a fortune in doing that. So that's one of the main reasons. So we moved out here, and like I said, we started doing real estate. And when we started doing real estate, I sat and modeled homes for 8 hours a day. And believe it or not, a lot of my clients were military. And so I got into that niche of working with the VA loans and working with military folks. And at the time we was selling houses. About a year, 2 years into it, most like every other soldier that you might know, eventually they don't stay at the base forever. They have to get either PCS'd to another base or they get deployed. And so at that time, when they did that, they were wondering, okay, what do we do with our house? We bought this house, we bought it with our VA loan. We don't have a lot of equity in it. I can't sell it because I don't have any money to put out to have to sell it. So I said, well, why don't we try renting it out? And so at that time, I was able to start Five Star Property Management in 2012. I became a state broker, a Texas state broker. And so we just started doing it out of a necessity to help my former clients do something with their homes. Because if we couldn't rent it out, the house was just going to go back to the bank. And so we don't want to do that. We definitely wanted to see what we can do to help out our clients. And so we started 5-Star Property Management. And that's kind of it in a nutshell a little bit, Jordan.
Yeah, that takes amazing wisdom and a lot of insight to be able to take something that was a very difficult situation, you know, obviously for yourself and your clients, but then in the immediacy, but to be able to shift it and to be able to start something that started with obviously 0 doors and now is over 200 doors. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how the pouring in of funds into Fort Bliss has now changed the entire outlook on 5-Star?
Yeah, so the money they put into Fort Bliss is just it literally has revitalized the El Paso area. New developments have come in. A lot of new companies have come in. Big corporations have come in. A lot of entertaining type industries have come in. Sports agencies, things like that, have come into the El Paso area, and so it's really, like I mentioned, it started this little economic boom. The housing market for new homes just exploded in the El Paso area. When I first got started, you could get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, brand new, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and for those coming in with the VA loan, literally get all their closing costs paid for and everything, and you could get a brand new home for 115,000. And this is a
Wow.
good 1,500 square foot home, which was unheard of, because I'm thinking, you couldn't even rent for less than what your mortgage was going to be. So it was actually a very beneficial thing to purchase a home. And so we saw that developing and growing in El Paso. And so it made it very profitable for my clients to get into a home, and obviously to have an opportunity to grow equity and things like that. So it was really interesting to see how this whole thing developed over time. But yeah, part of it was, after 1 or 2 years or even 3 years, the standard stay for most of the soldiers is 3 years at Fort Bliss, and then obviously they get orders to move and things like that. So with that being said, getting into property management was a way to help our existing clients. And, because the one thing we do is, we don't just sell somebody a home, or we don't just do property management and you never hear from us again. My strategy was doing real estate was that I'm always going to be in communication with my clients. I want them to know that I'm always there for them. And so I was always staying up to date with them every month. They would get a newsletter from me. They would get an email from me, periodic phone calls. And it was just that relationship that you build with people. And then you obviously want to take it to the next level and help them out in any way you possibly can. So.
Yeah, and so in that shift from going from the pure real estate side to, okay, now we're starting to take on some properties. Now we're starting to manage it. Now you're over 200 properties just in El Paso. Let's shift over and let's talk about the property management side. And so now there's a whole different mindset. Now we're providing peace and security for, a soldier's home potentially, or for a multifamily home. And so now what we're doing is we're providing them the peace and security that it's taken care of, by 5-Star. But at the same time, they're trusting us that whenever somebody who does come in and rent that home, that we're doing a screening process. You want to talk about what you guys do for screening?
Yeah, absolutely. So the screening process is a very important part of the whole process of renting out a home. The biggest thing we do at 5-Star Property Management, we don't get paid until we find a good tenant. And so the biggest thing I tell a lot of my landlords is, yes, I want to get you a tenant as fast as possible, because obviously I start to get paid on that. But I also want to find you the right tenant. And I always tell my clients, I am willing to bypass a bad application for the sake of not having to deal with the problems and things that will come about later on. So our screening process has been very diligent. We check for 4 major criteria. We do your standard background credit check, your background, all your criminal activity check, stuff like that. That's just your basic check. Every management company will do that. We also will do a verification of employment. So we want to check pay stubs, and typically we will check 3 months worth of pay stubs, if you're military, LES statements, things like that. And then we also do what we call rental history checks. So we're gonna contact their previous landlord through an authorization form that we get from the applicant, and we're gonna find out, did they pay their rent on time? Did they leave the property in good shape? Things like that. So when we take that information, we take the employment verification information, knowing how much they make, how long they've been at their job, the longevity, stability of their job, and then we take obviously their credit report, their background report. What we do is we summarize all that information, and there's not really any particular formula that we will look at, but you can tell a lot from a credit report. You can tell a lot from the amount of income somebody brings in, the rental history. And so we take a little bit of all that information and we analyze it, we summarize it for the owner of who we're going to do property management for, and we let the owner make the final decision. And I'll tell the owner, hey, this is a good applicant, or hey, this is not a good applicant. And for me to say that, it's kind of interesting because, like I said, we don't get paid until we find a tenant. So it would be most beneficial just to throw somebody in the house. Well, not necessarily, because if I just throw somebody in the house and these people don't pay their rent on time, it causes more of a problem for me as the property manager, even as well as the owner, because now the owner is not getting paid on time. His rents, his mortgage payment may not be getting paid on time, things like that. So we'll take a little bit more time in the screening process and make sure we find the right tenant for the property that we're managing, just so that it's going to be a smooth and seamless transition for everybody involved.
What's a potential red flag that you will see that some other property management companies may overlook and say, this isn't that big a deal, that you, because of your integrity, because of your faith-based background, that you won't let slide, that you'll have to bring to the owner's knowledge?
Yeah, great question, Jordan. I would have to say the rental history verification. Sometimes management companies won't even inquire about this information. Not that they don't want to, sometimes they just don't even know how to. In our application process, it's required that the applicant puts down their last place of tenancy. And so when we do that, we contact the old property manager or the old landlord. And at that time, we're able to get a really non-biased view of what that person was like when they were renting the property. And so, if they had 4 or 5 late payments, and if I guess one of the main questions is would you ever rent to this person again? It's a yes or no question. That question in itself will tell a whole lot about what type of tenant they were with that current company. Now, we totally understand things change, life happens, people go through things and things change. I've had great credit scores, great income tenants end up being nightmares. And then I've had people with bad credit scores and low income be amazing tenants. So even though it's not 100% guaranteed to be able to gauge that, like I said, life happens to a lot of people. And so technically a lot of things, what we do is if I have questions about an application, I'll get on the phone with the applicant and I'll say, hey, can you better explain what happened here? What happened here on your credit report, or, why is the income at this? Is there any more income? And most of the time you get a story that makes total sense. And I completely sympathize with people. And then I'll go and talk to the owner and say, okay, here's the situation. I spoke to them over the phone. I didn't get any bad vibes or anything from talking to them. They seem pretty genuine. And at times we may base our decision based on that conversation that I have with the tenant. So it's not 100% that we're just going to look at the data right before us and make a final decision, but that is the biggest part of screening a tenant is looking at the data that we collect and doing our due diligence to make sure that we can send that over to the owner, and so they fully understand what they're getting into if they accept this applicant.
Right. And I know that we touched on a little bit, and you explained it very thoroughly, but just having that open line of communication from 5-star to the owner of the property, from 5-star to the tenants, from 5-star within 5-star, whether it's from yourself as the owner, the founder of 5-star, or whether it's us in business development, or from, the managerial staff that's taking care of inspections, just having that communication that's open. We can all be in touch. I mean, one of the simplest things that you told me is that 5-star answers a phone and 5-star is replying back to voicemails, which is something that seems so simple, but just really sets you apart, how you do business, just on the front end side, whether it's to a tenant, or on the back end side, whether it's to an owner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Communication has been a huge part. It's been a passion of mine when I started Five Star Property Management because, one of the things for me is when I'm inquiring about information or somebody's services and I leave a message, I ultimately, I don't like leaving messages, but if I have to leave a message, I'll leave a message. And I expect somebody to call me back, and like
Yeah.
I'm interested. And so one thing I was told early on when I first moved to El Paso is, hey, if you answer your phone, you'll do very well. I'm like, well, that's awesome. Okay, all I gotta do is answer my phone. And I did that. And, helping people out, when I sell a home, I'm explaining the process from start to finish of things that most people don't know anything about. And the same thing with property management. When I'm talking to a landlord, it's a good 20-minute, 30-minute conversation I can have with them explaining the intricate details of what happens and why it happens and the marketing and so the communication process is so important, not only just to get the account, but to keep the account because our owners want to know what's going on with my home. And so a lot of things that we implement are inspections every either 3-month inspections or 6-month inspections. And we give that full report to the owners. And so the owners know, hey, there's somebody looking at my property and keeping an eye on it. It's not that we just put a tenant in the property and then we forget about them until their lease is up in 12 months. A lot happens in 12 months. And
Yeah.
if you look at a property and you come 12 months later and it's destroyed, you're thinking, oh my goodness, what happened? What could
Yeah.
have I done to prevented this? And so we take those initiatives and we go through, we do the inspections, and we don't charge extra for them. We go and inspect the properties and we give the owners full reports, and just being able to answer owners' questions and things like that and get back to them in a reasonable time, is my passion and my desire of why I started Five Star Property Management. 5 stars. 5 stars is the highest rating you can get. I said, well, if that's the highest rating you can get, I want to be that. And so
Yeah.
that's really where the name came from, was Five Star Property Management. Was, we want to be the best of the best. And so by doing that, we have to be able to communicate effectively, not only to our owners, but also to the tenants and people that are inquiring for our services.
Yeah, and so we'll do one final question for this video, but we've already talked about some simple things that just Five Star does that you would think is so simple, but quite frankly, not everybody is doing. That's the open line of communication,
Mhm.
and that's easing the tension on the front end, on the back end. But another one that is so simple that that Five Star really separates themselves in the process is the listing of properties. And what Five Star does that is so different is the unique camera angles of delivering an entire walkthrough. So somebody, if they're not able to see the property, they can still have that walkthrough. You do lots of different things that are outside the box that are so simple, but yet you're seeing such great results.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing we learned when we were selling homes. Obviously, to sell a home and put it on the online, we're going to get a professional photographer to come and take some really beautiful pictures of your listing when you're selling your home. Well, I started looking at the industry and I started seeing a lot of pictures. I think, man, these pictures of these rentals are horrible. Like they're dark and it's like somebody took them with their iPhone or something like that. And I know the iPhone camera is much better now these days, but back then, they're just, little flip phones and things like that. I'm thinking, man, these pictures are horrible. I can't even see the room. And so I thought, what can I do different? How can I make this different? And so I thought, and I was like, you know what? What if I have a professional photographer come in and take really nice photos? I mean, I'm not a professional photographer and I don't know about lighting, but photographers do. And so I thought, well, what if I hired a professional photographer to come in and take really nice photos of our rentals, photos that would best display the rental online and give it the best, picture that you can possibly give it online. And I thought, well, why don't I take it one step further and do like a walkthrough video as well? I mean, being in El Paso and being in a military base, we have a lot of applicants that aren't even in the city. They're not even in the country. And so if they can see this property and view it as if they were walking through it, that would give them a really good perspective of what the home looked like. And it's worked out wonders for the company, because not only that, we could display the property in its best light, but we end up getting applications and processes. We process applications with tenants that have never physically been at the property, but literally are able to move into the property when they get into town. So those are some of the things that we've done to best enhance the property for our owners. And yes, it's expensive to hire a photographer and a videographer to come and do videos, but it's worth it. It's 100% worth it. And the owners that have so far, we've done that with all of our properties, have been very appreciative. And it's just the way we do business. Like I said, we're going to do business with 5 stars, and so that's how we've done it.
And is just to recap, so are these things, is it something that you give to like a select clients, or is this something just across the board? This is just the way you do business?
Every home we property manage gets professional photography, gets professional walkthrough video done. Every property, regardless. Let me clarify that. Single family homes, apartments. Now, we do manage some small offices, things like that. Those we just, because the offices are only like 100 square feet, we're not going to get a professional photographer for 100 square feet. So
right.
Typically anything over 500 square feet is going to get professional photography and video done to it. So yes, but everyone gets that from that perspective.
Awesome. Well, I know this video was an overview of multiple different things, from the tenant side, from the resident side, honestly, from our side, to give you a full perspective of who 5 Star is. I know next week we're going to spend a little bit of time discussing more from the resident side. We hope you guys come back and see us. And Daniel, thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.